Not the goal. The goal is for those people who are going to watch the video. All right, you guys have this beginning part already written down. So we are going to try to make sense of what's on your piece of paper. By just what you've written down so far, can anybody tell me what that point is called? Focus. Why? Because it's the point inside that's equidistant from a point on the parabola. What would this guy be called, Tate? Directrix. Good. And it is equidistant. So if I pick a point, let's say I pick a point right here. If I could draw it exactly like I should, that segment would be congruent to that segment. Why is it not? Because of how I draw. Like, I just don't draw them right, okay? But the focus is equidistant from the point on the parabola, and the directrix is equidistant from that same point. Now, you already know the name of this vocabulary word. What's the name of that? Vertex, the min or max of the parabola. Now, there is a really funky looking equation that we're going to use called x squared equals 4py. To use this, the vertex has to be at 0, 0. To use this, the vertex has to be on 0, 0. So that's your disclaimer. You cannot use this unless what? Vertex is 0, 0. So say I give you a crazy equation, y equals negative 1/8 x squared. We need P because P's ultimate goal is to give us the focus and directrix in any of these problems we're working on. You have to be able to go forward and find P, but also given P, you have to go backwards and write an equation. So there's really two things about parabolas. Now, remember when we did these parabolas over here on the wall back in August? When we wrote an equation for those, I gave you the vertex, we found A, we found a point on the parabola, we did all kinds of different ways to write an equation. This is just another way to attack a conic section. Now, when you see y equals negative 1/8 x squared, the first thing you have to do is isolate x squared. So let's do that. Let's multiply both sides by negative 8. Why did I do that? Why, Harrison? Right, I want to get rid of negative 1/8. I want x squared to get by itself. Once x squared is by itself, then I want to use, step 2 is to use what I know about 4py equals x squared. Why is that helpful? How does that help me get p? Because a minute ago you were just writing as fast as you could the notes, and then I said we'll talk about it and try to make sense of it. Why does that help you get an answer for P? Good. And what do they both equal? The key is that they both equal x squared. So the transitive property says if A equals B and B equals C, then what can you do with the B's? Just get rid of them, cancel them, and A has to equal C. Well, aren't we doing that here? Isn't this A equals B, B equals, or C equals B, and what are we canceling out here? The x squareds, or the B's. So negative 8y has to be equal to 4py. Why? Why does negative 8y have to be equal to 4py? Perfect. Jinx, I think you should buy me a Coke, not each other a Coke. All right, so now this is exactly right. The y's are going to cancel. I'm going to do it in one step to save time. If you don't like to divide by 4y all at once, you don't have to. And y divided by y cancels out. And what is my p in this particular equation? What is it? Negative 2. Now, why does that help you? Because when you do the focus's little mini formula is 0, p. So if I go back to my original picture, okay, 0p is now at 0, oh, I can't use this one for it because it's a opening down parabola. Let's draw another one, guys. Sorry. Let's just draw another one down here. So my formula for the focus is 0p. So my focus is 0, negative 2. That is my focus. That's all I know so far. Now, what's my funky little formula for my directrix? My directrix has the formula y equals negative p. So where am I going to put my directrix in this one? The negative of negative 2 is what? 2. So I'm going to come up here, and my directrix is at y equals 2, a horizontal line. What do you already know about the parabola? Where's its vertex? Good, Kelsey, 0, 0. And is it skinny or fat when it's, let's look at the original, when it's negative 1/8 for, it's fat, super fat. Super fat. What would make it really super skinny if that number was what? 8 or negative 8, yeah, absolutely. So we're going to draw them kind of wide. So we're using things that we are pulling all the way back from August. We knew it opened down because A was negative. And your task in this classwork today is going to be to find P. The key is don't get muddled up because it's new and weird. Solve for x squared, set that equal to 4py, solve for P. Now, if you go forwards in math, what do you have to do also? Backwards. So say I gave you that the focus was at 0, 1/2. What do you know you have to do to write the equation? 4py equals x squared. That's always our generic guy we're going to use. We used him over here in number 2. Remember that? Here we used him in number 2. Here, we're going to use him again. How do I know what P is already with no work? Good, 1/2. So I'm going to sub in P equals 1/2 right here. Half of 4 is 2. Now I want to get y by itself because now I'm writing the equation of a line, or of a parabola, not a line. What is the disclaimer that always has to be to use this method? 0, 0. Good, Emily. Divide by 2. Y equals either 1/2 x squared or x squared over 2. Hannah, what's the most difficult thing about this 5-minute lesson to you? Mm-hmm. The vocab you've never had before. Let's try to write an equation of a parabola if all I tell you is that the directrix formula is y equals negative 16. That's all I'm giving you. Write an equation of a parabola that has a directrix at y equals negative 16. What is the only thing you care about stealing from that equation? Do you know, Britta? What do we need out of that? P. What is P? Why did she say 16 instead of negative 16? Do you all know? Right, because in the directrix is y equals negative p. Very good. So I'm going to put a little cartoon bubble here because she caught it. Y equals negative p. So the p comes out. Then you go back to this original equation that we've used over and over again, so he's going to be important. Plug in your p. We've got to divide by 4 times 16 is huge. Glad I didn't ask you to graph it. This would be super, super skinny because it would be 1 over 64. I mean, super fat. Yes, you get a point for that. Super fat, 1 over 64. For every move that it makes up 1, it's going to go right 64 units. So, shoo, that is super fat. Don't forget to get your point, Harrison. Go ahead.
I feel like this is common sense, but how do we get from the, maybe just to, like to get from 64
Now, some people would say that it was like this, Ashby, x squared over 64. I'm just so in the habit of I want to know what a is that,
You're dividing by
so,
64.
right, so I go ahead and put the 1 and make it look like I'm multiplying by 1 over 64, but either is equally like. You can divide by 64 or multiply by 1 over 64. The reason I do it that way is just because in my brain I want to know what a is, just from what we did in August. Good question. Any other questions? How many questions did I give you to graph? 3, do 3 graph and 2 write an equation?
I don't know. I haven't looked in the direction.
Okay, all right. So then that is for the lesson on 9-2. So I want to real quick show you something about circles just because some of you won't be here tomorrow.
Well, if we are here tomorrow, will we get this?
Yeah. When you do circles, that's the most important thing in your circle notes. If the center's at 0, 0, it becomes so much easier. Like if there's a problem and your center's at 0, 0, this is way easier looking than this. But what's the only difference between these two in the circle homework, which is 9-3 lesson? Tell me the difference between those two. Hunter, you're going to be gone tomorrow. Do you know what the difference is between those two? Yeah, HK has a value in this one. In this one, H and K are just 0, 0, your center. So even though you're thinking, okay, HK is always my center, what do I do when there's no HK? Tate, you're going to be gone tomorrow. What does it mean when there's no HK? Has to be, right? Because it's not there. Now, XY is a point on the circle. And what is R? Good. So don't let it mess with you if it looks like this instead of this. This just means center 0, 0. This means center at some point HK. And it was like what Britta did up here with y equals negative p. You have to change the sign. If there is an x minus 7, the center is not at negative 7. What is it at? 7. What if it's y minus 3? What is the y of the center? Positive 3. Okay, and that's just like it was in the x-coordinate of parabolas. All right, so I just wanted to throw that in for the people who are going to be gone tomorrow for 9-3. So we should have time to do those 5 questions I gave you in 9-2 now.